The courtroom was full that morning. People whispered, shuffled papers, and stared at their phones. A few looked up when the door opened, but most didn't care. Just another case, just another man. But when Elijah walked in, everything felt different. He was tall but looked tired. His coat was old and too big. His shoes made soft, dragging sounds on the courtroom floor. In his hands, he held a thin file. His fingers trembled, but his eyes stayed focused. Some people in the back chuckled quietly. One woman whispered, "Looks like he got lost on the way to the shelter." The judge glanced up, then looked again, this time with a smirk. "Elijah Thomas," the judge said loudly. "Nice of you to finally show up. We were just about to start without you." More laughter spread across the room. Elijah didn't say a word. He didn't look left or right. He just walked forward, stood in front of the bench, and placed the file gently on the table. Then, he looked up, right into the judge's eyes. "I'm here, Your Honor," he said softly. His voice was calm, but there was something in it, something steady, something that didn't match his clothes. The judge leaned back in his chair, clearly annoyed. "This isn't a fashion show," he said, "but at least try to look like you respect this court." Elijah blinked slowly. "Respect is earned, Your Honor." A few people stopped smiling. The air in the room shifted, just slightly. The judge narrowed his eyes. "Are you trying to be smart with me, Mr. Thomas?" "No, sir," Elijah said, "just honest." The prosecutor stood up and cleared his throat. "If we can begin, Your Honor." "We don't have all day." The judge waved his hand. "Fine. Let's see what this is about. Mr. Thomas, you filed a request for reinvestigation. You claim to have new evidence. You're not a lawyer. You have no legal background. And yet you think you can walk into this courtroom and change history." Elijah didn't answer right away. He opened the file and took out a photograph, old, black and white, with creases on the edges. He held it up. "This is my brother," Elijah said, "taken the day before he was arrested." He walked forward and handed the photo to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. The judge looked at it with little interest. "And he was 16, Elijah said. "He never came home after that day." The room went still. Even the people in the back leaned forward now. Elijah took out another paper. It was the handwritten note. He unfolded it carefully. "This is a letter he wrote from prison. He said he was innocent. He said he had proof. But no one listened." The judge scoffed. "Mr. Thomas, this case is over 20 years old. It's closed." Elijah nodded. "Yes, closed. Buried. Forgotten. That's what you wanted, isn't it?" The judge's face darkened. "Watch yourself, sir." Elijah looked up again, calm, steady, unafraid. "I watched my mother cry every night for 20 years. I watched my father die with a broken heart. I watched our family fall apart. I watched everything. I remember everything. Now it's your turn." People whispered again, but this time it was different. No laughter now. Just quiet voices filled with curiosity and tension. Then, Elijah reached the last page in the file. It was an official court document, stamped, signed. "This order," he said, "was signed by you. It blocked new evidence from being submitted. It sealed the case permanently. But this copy was hidden in an old box, forgotten. Someone found it last week in the basement of a law school." The judge took the paper from the bailiff. His hands stiffened as he read it. His face changed. Elijah stepped back. "That sound you heard when I walked in, that wasn't my shoes. That was the past knocking." Silence. No one moved. No one breathed. Even the court reporter had stopped typing. The judge stared at the paper, speechless. The courtroom, so full of noise and judgment just minutes ago, now felt like a frozen photograph. And for the first time that morning, no one laughed. The courtroom stayed silent. The judge slowly placed the document on his desk. His fingers tapped against it, but his eyes didn't leave the paper. Elijah stood tall. The same man they laughed at just minutes ago now had everyone's attention. "Your Honor," Elijah said, voice calm but heavy, "my brother's name was Marcus Thomas. You sent him to prison when he was just a kid. 16. He never even had a real lawyer." "That's not true," the prosecutor interrupted. "He had a public defender who never showed up for the second hearing. Elijah said quickly. Who never spoke to my family? Who didn't call a single witness? The judge looked uncomfortable now. He shifted in his seat. Elijah took out more papers from the file. He walked over and gave copies to the bailiff. These are police reports, he said, from the night my brother was arrested. And these. He pulled out more pages. Witness statements that were never brought into court. The judge frowned. Where did you get these? A janitor, Elijah replied, retired now. He cleaned the courthouse for 30 years. He found a box marked discard. Inside were papers that someone never wanted to see the light again. A murmur spread through the room. The young lawyer sitting in the back, a woman no one had noticed before, leaned forward. Her eyes were wide, focused on Elijah. He held up a page. One witness said Marcus was home during the time of the crime. Another said they saw someone else run from the scene. But none of that was mentioned in court. Not once. The prosecutor tried to speak again. This doesn't prove anything. Elijah looked straight at him. Then why hide it? The judge finally spoke, voice low. Why bring this now, after all these years? Elijah stepped closer to the front. Because last year, I got a letter from Marcus. He wrote it before he died in prison. Liver failure. He said, Eli, I still believe one day you'll bring the truth out. That's the only reason I kept living, for this day. The young lawyer in the back stood up. Your Honor, she said, I'd like to be heard. The judge looked surprised. Who are you? My name is Rachel Price, she said. I'm a law clerk at the state legal office. I came to watch today's hearings. But I know this case. The judge raised an eyebrow. You know it? She nodded. We studied it in law school. We were told it was an example of rushed judgment, missing files, and silence from the court. We didn't know the man behind the case still had family fighting for him. Elijah looked at her, his eyes soft. Rachel continued, Sir, with respect, there's more here than just paper. There's a pattern, a failure, a voice that was never heard. The prosecutor shook his head. This is out of line. No, Elijah said firmly. What's out of line is 20 years of silence, of pain, of pretending nothing happened. Rachel took a deep breath. I request the court to allow a full review of the Marcus Thomas case, based on new evidence, missing documents, and mishandled procedure. The judge looked angry, but also unsure. His hand gripped the edge of the desk. Do you have authority to request that? He asked Rachel. She held up her badge. Yes, sir. I'm backed by the State Innocence Program. We're watching now. Gasps echoed around the courtroom. Elijah stood still. His eyes were moist, but he didn't cry. He just whispered, finally. The judge didn't speak. Not for 10 seconds. Not for 20. But the silence said everything. The courtroom, once full of noise and doubt, had now become a place of truth. Elijah stood quietly, holding the file close to his chest. The courtroom felt heavy, like the walls themselves were listening. The judge shifted in his chair, trying to look strong, but there was a tightness in his jaw now. He couldn't hide it anymore. Rachel Price, the young legal clerk, stepped beside Elijah. Her voice was clear, but respectful. Your Honor, I'm requesting access to the sealed documents from the original trial. We believe they were never lawfully sealed. The order was rushed. The judge narrowed his eyes. You're accusing this court of corruption? No, sir, Rachel replied. We're asking this court to fix a mistake. Elijah opened the file again, flipping to a single sheet. It was yellowed with age, but every word was still readable. He raised it slowly and spoke. This is the order that sealed Marcus's case. It was signed by one person, not a jury, not a second judge, just one man. He paused. The room leaned in. Elijah looked directly at the bench. It was signed by Judge Malcolm Reed. Silence, then whispers, then gasps. Rachel's eyes widened. Even the court officers exchanged glances. The judge didn't move. Elijah continued, calm but sharp. That's you, isn't it? 20 years ago, you weren't in this big courtroom. You were still a junior judge. But you had power, and you used it to bury my brother's voice. The judge's face turned pale. I don't know what you're talking about, he muttered. But even he didn't sound sure anymore. Elijah walked forward, step by step. I remember your face, he said. I was a scared little boy, sitting in the back row. My mother cried while you read the sentence. You didn't even look at her. Enough. The judge snapped, slamming his gavel down. But the sound didn't silence the room. It only made the truth louder. Rachel stepped forward again. We're not here to destroy reputations, Your Honor. We're here to uncover the truth. If you made a mistake, now is your chance to fix it. The judge stared at her, his lips tightened. He looked down at the document again, the one with his own signature. Elijah didn't blink. You remember what you did. You know this case was wrong. You sealed the evidence. You blocked my brother's voice. Why would I do that? The judge barked. Elijah's voice dropped. Because the real suspect was the son of a rich businessman, a donor. You protected him. The judge froze. Gasps again. One man in the audience stood up before slowly sitting back down. The silence returned, but now it was filled with something new. Fear. Elijah pulled out the last photo from the file. It showed a young white boy being led into a police car, but with no cuffs. Next to him was a tall man in a suit, holding a checkbook. This is the boy, Elijah said. He confessed in private. His father paid hush money. The files were sealed the next day. Rachel looked at the judge. Sir, we can't ignore this anymore. The judge leaned back, suddenly looking older, tired, defeated. He whispered something no one heard. Elijah took a breath. I didn't come here for revenge. I came here because my brother believed someone would listen one day. I came here because he died alone, waiting. The courtroom was still. Even the prosecutor didn't speak now. Elijah looked up one last time. Say his name, Judge. Just once. The judge looked down at the file. His lips trembled. Then, for the first time in 20 years, he whispered, Marcus Thomas. And in that moment, the courtroom went silent again, but not because of fear. This time, it was respect. Rachel Price stood still, her hands clenched at her sides. She had never spoken in a courtroom before, not like this, not with so many eyes watching her, not in front of a judge whose signature had buried a family's truth for 20 years. But something inside her had changed the moment Elijah said his brother's name. Marcus Thomas. The name echoed in her head like a bell, loud, painful, and unforgettable. Rachel took a deep breath and stepped forward. Your Honor, she said, her voice clear but trembling, I request the immediate unsealing of all documents in the Marcus Thomas case. Every file, every report, every page. The judge didn't respond. He stared at his own signature on the old document like it was a ghost from his past. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Rachel turned to the court. This case isn't just about one mistake. It's about a broken system that stayed quiet while an innocent boy lost everything. The prosecutor stood up quickly. Objection. This is not her courtroom, and she's not licensed to speak here. Rachel faced him without blinking. Then stop me. Go ahead. Tell this room that the truth doesn't matter because of a license. The prosecutor froze. Elijah watched Rachel with quiet respect. He didn't know her an hour ago, but now she was standing where no one else dared to. The judge finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. You don't know what it was like back then, he said. Pressure from above. Phone calls in the night. Promises. Threats. Rachel nodded slowly. Maybe. But that doesn't excuse what happened. He looked up at her, eyes tired. You're right. Then, he reached for his pen. His hand shook as he signed a form sitting beside him. This order unseals the case, he said. All records will be released for full review. The audience gasped. One older woman in the back began to cry softly. Rachel turned to Elijah. We did it. But Elijah didn't smile. His eyes were wet. His lips pressed tightly together. My brother's still gone, he whispered. Nothing brings him back. Rachel gently touched his arm. No, but now, the world will know who he really was. The judge leaned back, suddenly seeming very small in his chair. Elijah looked at him. Why did you do it? Why protect the other boy? The judge hesitated, then sighed. Because his father paid for my election. I told myself it was just one case, just one boy. But I knew exactly what I was doing. A deep, painful silence filled the room. Then Elijah said something no one expected. I forgive you. Everyone turned to look at him. I didn't come here for hate, he said. I came for justice. And Marcus wouldn't want me to carry anger forever. The judge bowed his head. Rachel stepped forward. We'll submit the case to the Innocence Board. Marcus's name will be cleared officially. I'll make sure of it. The judge looked up. You're just a student. She smiled faintly. I won't be for long. Elijah turned toward the courtroom door. As he walked, people began to stand. One by one. Silent, respectful. No applause. No shouting. Just quiet honor. For a man who came in with nothing. And gave the courtroom something it had lost. A reason to listen. Elijah stepped out of the courtroom and into the bright sunlight. For a moment, he stood still. He closed his eyes, lifted his head, and breathed in the air like a man who had been underwater for too long. Behind him, the heavy wooden doors slowly closed, but what had started inside that courtroom was far from over. Rachel followed Elijah outside. Her hands were still shaking, her heart pounding. She had never spoken like that in front of a judge before, but something about Elijah's strength gave her courage she never knew she had. A reporter came rushing up, then another, then 3 more. Sir, is it true the judge sealed your brother's case? Do you believe Marcus was innocent? What's next for you in this case? Elijah didn't smile. He didn't pose. He just looked into the camera and said, my brother was innocent. But no one listened, until today. The next morning, the news spread like wildfire. Courtroom bombshell. Man reveals judge sealed his brother's case to protect wealthy family. Young legal clerk speaks out. Helps reopen wrongful conviction after 20 years. The name Marcus Thomas is finally being heard. Across the city, people watched in shock. Some cried. Some grew angry. Some remembered. An older woman in a quiet nursing home watched the story and whispered, I always knew something wasn't right with that trial. A high school teacher paused her lesson and showed the news clip to her class. This is why we speak up, she said, even when no one believes us. Elijah sat in his small apartment, phone buzzing non-stop. Messages poured in from strangers. I'm sorry for what your family went through. Your story gave me strength to tell mine. Marcus is not forgotten. Rachel came to visit that evening. She brought files, papers, and coffee. But her face was full of hope. I spoke to my professor, she said. He's taking the case to the State Innocence Board himself. He said your brother's name will be cleared in the next hearing. Elijah looked down. I waited so long to hear that. Rachel nodded. He deserves to be free, even if it's only his name. There was silence between them for a moment. Then Elijah whispered, do you think he knows? Rachel smiled softly. I think he's been listening this whole time. Later that night, a candlelight vigil was held outside the courthouse. People came with signs, with candles, with photos of Marcus from old newspapers. Some had never met him. Others were people who once knew his mother, his friends, or even just remembered his name from 20 years ago. Elijah stood at the front. He didn't give a speech. He just lit a candle and whispered, I kept my promise, Marcus. And the crowd behind him whispered back, we hear you now. Judge Malcolm Reed sat alone in his office. The curtains were drawn. The lights were off. Only the soft glow of a small desk lamp lit the room. He stared at an old photograph, one from his early years. He was smiling, wearing a fresh black robe, shaking hands with a powerful man. The same man who had made the call. The same man who had told him, seal the case, protect the boy. His hands trembled now as he held the photo. He had done it. He had sealed Marcus Thomas's case without a full hearing, without a second thought, just a signature. Back then, it felt like a small thing, a favor, a quiet deal, no cameras, no protests. But now, the world was watching. His name was everywhere. The headlines didn't call him judge anymore. They called him the man who buried the truth. There was a soft knock on his office door. It opened slowly, and Rachel Price stepped inside. She looked nervous but determined. "I came alone," she said. "I just want to talk." Judge Reed didn't move. "You were brave in court," he said quietly. "Most lawyers wouldn't dare speak to me like that." Rachel stepped forward. "I didn't do it to be brave. I did it because someone had to." He nodded slowly. "I know." She placed a folder on his desk. "These are the official steps for resignation. If you sign it, the hearing will go easier for you. You might keep your pension, maybe even some dignity." He looked at the folder but didn't open it. "You think I deserve dignity?" he asked. Rachel paused. "I think you made a terrible mistake, but I also think you know that now." He sighed deeply, rubbing his eyes. "I told myself it was just one boy," he whispered. "I thought it would fade. I thought no one would ever find out." Rachel's voice softened. "But now they have. And the question is, what are you going to do with what's left?" Judge Reed looked up at her. "I want to speak," he said, "at the Innocence Board hearing. I want to tell them everything. No lawyers, no lies." Rachel blinked. "You'd admit to everything?" He nodded. "Yes, I need to." Outside, reporters waited. Cameras flashed through the windows. The world wanted answers. Rachel stood silently for a moment, then reached out and pushed the resignation papers toward him. He picked up the pen. But before signing, he looked at her. "Tell Elijah, I'm sorry." Rachel's eyes watered. "You can tell him yourself. At the hearing." And with that, the once powerful judge signed his name, this time not to hide the truth, but to set it free. The courtroom was full again. But this time, it was different. No shouting, no shame, no whispers behind backs, only silence, respectful, waiting. At the front, the State Innocence Board sat in black suits behind a long table. Beside them stood Rachel, holding a thick file of documents. Beside her was Elijah, dressed in a simple shirt and blazer, holding nothing but a small old photo of his brother. And sitting alone on the other side was Judge Malcolm Reed. No robe, no desk, just a man facing what he had run from for 20 years. The lead board member cleared his throat. "This hearing has been called to decide if Marcus Thomas was wrongfully convicted and to hear the testimony of those involved." Rachel stepped forward. Her voice was calm and steady. "Marcus Thomas was 16 when he was accused of a crime he didn't commit. He was given no fair trial. He was silenced. Today, we speak for him." Then she handed the floor to Judge Reed. He stood slowly. He looked tired, but he spoke clearly. "I sealed that case," he said. "I knew Marcus was innocent, but I let pressure, power, and fear control me. I failed him, and I failed this courtroom." No one interrupted him. "I signed the order that erased his name, but no piece of paper can hide the truth forever. I asked this board to clear Marcus Thomas's record, not for me, for him, for his family, for justice." Then he sat down. A long pause followed. Then the board spoke. "We have reviewed the evidence. We have listened to the testimonies, and we now declare," the entire room leaned in, "that Marcus Thomas was wrongfully convicted. His name is officially cleared." The room stayed silent for a second, and then applause. Not loud, not wild, just slow, soft, real. Tears rolled down Elijah's face as he held up the photo of Marcus. "He didn't die a criminal," he whispered. "He died a good man." Rachel stood beside him, proud. Outside, people gathered around the courthouse steps. Candles were lit again, this time not in sorrow, but in honor. Children held signs that said, "Justice for Marcus." An old teacher placed a rose on the courthouse stairs, and strangers, who never knew the boy, spoke his name with respect. Marcus Thomas, the name they tried to erase. But now, the world would never forget it.